very much, everyone, to participate in SKKU China Business Webinar Seminar. And we've been doing since this year, January, and we are basically covering up recent China trend on business, especially on digital transformation. One of the important topic of this digital transformation of a Chinese business is fintech. We've been covering this topic with Professor An on N2 group cases. Today, we'd like to further to hear and discuss with the experts in this field with Professor Yi Jie from Sherman University. Let me introduce Professor Yi Jie. She will talk about the topic about 30 or 40 minutes. Then I have two discussants, Professor Bian Nong and Professor No Young. First, Professor No Young will talk about her topic. Then Bian Nong will discuss on this fintech issue. Let's give us a big hand to welcome in Professor Yi Jie.
Thank you. I'm very happy to share some thoughts on the recent progress of Chinese fintech. I have prepared two sections, one focusing on the public sector and one focusing on the private sector. So here is my outline. In the first section, we will take a look on the central bank digital currencies in China. We will touch on three questions. First is the issuance plan and design features of eCNY, the central bank digital currency in China. And then we touch on two technology questions. Blockchain and the decentralized system are two technologies adopted by the famous cryptocurrency Bitcoin. I will address whether eCNY will also adopt these two technologies. And last, the driving forces and the potential impacts of eCNY. Then we move to the second section, the private sector, the recent news, restructure of Ant Group. We will start by the IPO suspension and the business model of Ant, and then we discuss some concerns and how the regulators think. I will use the DAC test to illustrate how the regulators think about Ant. And then we will talk about the newly proposed rules and how it will impact Ant's business. So now let's move to the first chapter. Can you see the pictures here? There are some pictures on how the eCNY looks. The eCNY is already being tested for actual uses in some cities in China. As we can see from the pictures here, there are on-site stores already accepting eCNY, and they could use it with digital wallets. They could also use it with physical cards. That means you do not need a smartphone to use eCNY. And many citizens in China have already tried it out. Here's the total number. Over 1 million population have already tried out eCNY. So we can see from these figures that PBOC is taking eCNY really seriously. It has started quite early and it is progressing really well. There are some material dates that we can take a look together. Here's the timeline. Let's discuss some very important years. First is year 2014. In this year, the central bank in China have formed a research group for digital fiat currency. Just 2 years later, after Alipay have got its payment license. And then year 2017. In this year, the DCEP or eCNY project has formally started. And in the same year, the Chinese central bank banned crypto asset trading in China. The last year, we started to test the actual usage in some cities of eCNY. And in the same year, the central bank PBOC proposed a revision on central bank law to make sure that eCNY is legal in China. Then this year, the central bank in China started to consider cross-border payments using central bank digital currency. There are tests in Hong Kong, and there's a cooperation project with other economies called Multi-CBDC Bridge. Here, I posted a picture on the proposed revision of central bank law in China. We can look at the two articles. First is Article 19, that the renminbi, CNY or RMB could have both physical form and digital form. And then the Article 22, no one could issue digital tokens to replace CNY. This proposed revision is the first time in 17 years in China. So central bank is trying to make sure that the law foundation is well prepared for e-CNY. Now let's move to some design features. We all know that China has a very large population. So in operating the e-CNY system, the central bank PBOC will not take the full responsibility alone. There will be a two-tiered system. In the first tier, the central bank will try to build financial infrastructure and supervise the overall system. And here is the second tier. There will be some authorized operators handling all the details. It will include commercial banks, telecom operators, and the two internet payment service providers, Alipay and WeChat Pay. So this means the central bank in China is trying to use this two-tier system to make sure the infrastructure for e-CNY is well supervised and well handled. These are the main design features that we can discuss about e-CNY. Now let's consider another problem. This question is that we all know that Bitcoin, the famous cryptocurrency or crypto asset, has used the blockchain to store its transactions. So there have been discussions on whether e-CNY will also use blockchain. My answer is not necessary. We can take a look on what blockchain is and what it can do and when we do not need it. In essence, blockchain is one type of data structure, one type of data structure you can use to store data. It means you can store data with linked lists and hash pointers. You may get lost at this point if you don't know the meaning of linked lists and hash pointers. But the use of this kind of data structure is very easy to understand. The advantage of using blockchain, using hash, using linked lists is that for a very small change in your data set, a very small modification, a very small tap to tamper your data, you will know it very soon and very easily. That's why the famous magazine, Economist, describes blockchain as a trust machine, because it helps you to create a sense of security when you do not trust the manager of the data system or other participants who also have access to the system. That means whenever you are worried that others will manipulate the real data, blockchain is one of the best choice. That also means blockchain is a suitable solution for some scenarios and not suitable for others. And here, for the case of e-CNY, the central bank digital currency, it is handled by PBOC, the central bank in China, which enjoys enough trust from the public. So that means whenever there is enough trust, we do not need blockchain to record the transactions. It is not necessary, simply not necessary in this scenario. Another technology discussed a lot is called decentralized system. Because Bitcoin used the peer-to-peer system, it's totally decentralized. So what about e-CNY? Will it also choose the decentralized system? The answer is also no here. It is infeasible. Let's discuss this question from a theory describes what decentralized system can do and what it can't. There's something called incompatible trinity. There are many versions to describe this incompatible trinity. I will use the CAP theorem. The CAP theorem means that for any system, there are 3 desirable features. However, if this system is really decentralized, then for the 3 desirable features, you can only have 2 of them. You can never have all of them. And the 3 designing features, we can look at this picture. It's described as CAP, C-A-P. C here means consistency. That means your wallet and my digital wallet will share the same records. They are consistent with each other. And A means availability. Whenever you made a payment, and after the payment, you want to check whether it succeeds or failed. If the system is always ready for you to check it out, then we say the system is available, always available. It has a feature of A, availability. And the P here means partition tolerance. It means for if one part of the system, one small part of the system breaks down, the other part of the system will still go on to operate. So for daily payments, I think we need all 3 of them. You need the system to be consistent. You need it to be always available, always ready for checkout whether the payment succeeds or not. And we want the system to have the feature of partition tolerance. If one part breaks down for one small failure, the other part would continue to go on. So how to make the choices? If ECNY is used for daily payments, it's really hard. For Bitcoin, it has chosen C and P out of the CAP theorem. It chose consistency and partition tolerance, and it sacrificed availability. If you want to pay in Bitcoin, you need to wait. You maybe need to wait about 10 minutes to know whether it succeeded or not. But for central bank digital currency, they are designed, especially the retail type, they are designed for daily usage, for daily payment. It needs all of the C, A, and P. And that means it cannot be a truly decentralized system. This is the conclusion here. And now let's have a sum up. For the 2 technologies here, for blockchain, it's not necessary. And for the decentralized system, it is infeasible. Although there are some measures trying to link ECNY with blockchain and DLT, the decentralized ledger, the 2 technologies will not play a dominant role for the overall system. But PBOC have said that they will allow the second-tiered operators, the authorized operators, some of them, to freely use blockchain and DLT as their own technology choices. This is a technology introduction. And at this point, one question may be, with not enough technology innovations, why do we still need ECNY? What's ECNY's driving forces? What's its marginal contributions? I think the logic goes like this. The payment landscape is changing, and some central banks are trying to catch up with the changes. I put one example here. Do you recognize this picture? It's an ongoing partition. It's still ongoing. This partition I will use as an example to illustrate the payments landscape, how it's changed. This partition asks Amazon to accept Dogecoin, one famous cryptocurrency, as a payment method. We can look at the details here. Here's the web page. You can find this web page and you can sign it. If you support it, I put my name and my email address here just to show how to sign it and show support. But I didn't actually sign it. I don't support this program. However, there are already more than 100,000 people being supported. Why? Why do they choose to support? And why do so many people want an actual change in the payment methods of Amazon? Chances are they have the Dogecoin and they want to use it. But we can try to find out the reason for this partition from its content. Here is the partition. There are some sentences from the actual partition. It goes like this. Amazon does not accept cryptocurrencies. That means it is not friendly to many people who do not have a traditional bank account. And because Dogecoin is fast, it's cheap, and stable, I don't agree with this saying, but I will keep it to myself. Then Amazon should accept Dogecoin as payment method. That's why they want to change. We can easily create another version. It will go like this. Currently, some stores and taxis does not accept the old legal tender cash, the only legal tender cash, as a payment method. And that means it is not friendly to many people who do not have a mobile payment app or a smartphone. So, and because CBDC, the eCNY, is really fast and cheap and stable, it has zero transaction fees, it is stable in value just as other forms of RMB, and does not always require a smartphone, and naturally enjoy the trust from all citizens. So now it is time for central banks to offer CBDC as a payment method, and for all stores to accept it. We can use the partition and then change it a little, and then we can understand the driving forces for CBDC here. I listed the driving forces. First, cash as the only central bank money for daily payment is falling behind people's needs. It cannot meet the needs now. And Chinese people now prefer to go out without cash and only with their mobile phones. So the central bank in China is trying to adapt to the changes. And what's more, we know that the mobile payments in China is dominated by Alipay and WeChat Pay. So with the central bank joining in to provide mobile payments, that means it could create competition among the two big payment platforms, and it will help to avoid the payment platforms being too big to fail. These are the driving forces. And finally, two last questions. Should we use eCNY as another investment instrument? Does it have investment values? When I was first asked this question, I was a little surprised because the answer is certainly no. eCNY is just another form of RMB, 另外一种形式的人民币. So it has the same value as all kinds of RMB, like cash, like RMB deposit. It's not like the cryptocurrency. There's no investment values, and it will always stay stable as other kinds of RMB. Another question you already brought up is, could eCNY help RMB internationalization? There's no certain answer, but I think my answer is probably not. Whether someone will use a foreign currency depends on some old factors, culture, trade, financial system, and providing one digital form of the old currency does not make all the other factors better. So that means providing eCNY will not guarantee the success of RMB internationalization. We need to improve the other factors. And however, eCNY may contribute to some ongoing cross-border payment cooperations. They are in very early period. We can wait and see how it goes, like this project, the multi-CBDC bridge project. This is my brief introduction of eCNY. Now let's move to the second section, the Ants story. The recent progress of fintech in the private sector. I have learned that you are already very familiar with Ants IPO and its suspension, so I will skip this part and directly discuss the Ants business model. I summarize the Ants business model with a DNA loop. Here D means data. It means that Ants can have lots of data from its users, from their activities, and they can learn about their users' preferences and their credit histories. And this data set will help Ant to provide better service for its users. And N here means network. All the activities and all the data analyzed will have to create something called a network effect. The more people use it, it becomes more attractive and convenient. So now we have 1 billion users in China of Ant Group service. And A means all kinds of activities Ant Group offered to its users. The DNA is the loop. It helps enforce each other. So with so many users of Ant service and with so many financial functions Ant Group provided, its business model is cooperation with other traditional financial institutions. All the financial institutions, the old ones, new ones, banks, the insurers, they want to get to this 1 billion users. So the banks, the mutual funds, the insurers, they choose to cooperate with Ant for access for their consumer base. And there are many cooperations going on between Ant Group and other financial institutions. This is its business model. It's not just a payment company. And if we try to check out the different parts of its revenues, we can see it clearly. There are 3 parts of Ant's business revenues, and the digital payments contribute less than half of it. More than half of the revenues comes from its fintech platform. Fintech platform means it comes from the cooperation with other financial institutions. This part is larger than the payment business. And the 1 main part of this cooperation is the co-lending business, the co-lending with banks to consumers. With so much lending business, this makes Ant look like a financial institution instead of a tech company. And we can see 2 famous products of this co-lending business is called 蚂蚁花呗 and 蚂蚁借呗. 蚂蚁花呗 Ant Check Later is a virtual credit card issued to Ant platform users, and the 蚂蚁借呗 Ant Cash Now is unsecured small loan to consumers on Ant's platform, on the Alipay platform. This part is the main business of Ant Group. But this model have created some problems. In this cooperation, Ant emphasized that it is a tech firm, not a bank. So in the co-lending business, Ant will act like the technology and the information provider. It will provide very little funds in the co-lending model. And where does the money come from? It comes from its partners, the banks. The banks are the fund provider. So this kind of co-lending, it has created at least 2 problems. We can check out it here. One big concern for the regulators is the financial literacy. The co-lending by Ant, especially the virtual credit card business, 蚂蚁花呗, has greatly increased financial inclusion. So the financial service to ordinary people is running really fast. But the users' financial literacy could not catch up with the financial service they enjoyed. And that means some of them could not correctly interpret the financial charges into annualized interest rates and then correctly understand the real cost of their loans. And whenever you underestimate the cost of your credit, you may overspend a little. That's the problem of financial literacy and overspending. Another concern is more severe and a little difficult to understand is misallocation or distortion in the credit risk management. We learn finance and we know that the strength of risk management comes from the muscle called information. However, in this co-lending business, the one who has the muscle, who has the information, bears little responsibility in risk controlling. And the other part of the co-lending business, who have little information, who have little muscle, will bear most of the responsibility in the co-lending business. Here, this picture represents Ant. Ant have enough muscles to control risk, but it bears little risk because they are the information provider, and they really know their consumers. But most of the time, they only provide 2 to 10% of the fund of the co-lending, and that means they will bear less than 10% of the credit risk. And the next picture here, I use it to represent the banks. They have very few muscles to control risk because they have very little information. They do not know the consumers on Ant's platform, but they bear the most risk because they are the fund providers. They provide most of the funds, and they need to share the corresponding responsibility of the credit risk. This distortion may create some systematic problem in the financial system, in the overall financial system in China. That's why the regulators are really worried about Ant's co-lending business. The regulators soon realize the problems, and I want to use one famous poem to illustrate how the regulators think. Ant positions itself as a tech firm, but the regulators think it is a bank. Why is it? Here is a poem for children, but we can use this poem to understand why regulators think tech is not a truly tech company, and it needs to accept some very strict financial regulations. The poem goes like this. When I see a bird that walks like a dog and swims like a dog and quacks like a dog, I call the bird a duck. And for regulators, they think that when I see Ant that walks like a bank and swims like a bank and quacks like a bank, I call Ant maybe some new form of bank, and I need to regulate it with the same regulation for banks. That's why we have seen Ant's IPO suspension, because the regulators realize the problems and they want to re-regulate Ant, not like a tech firm, but more like a financial institution. Here is the newly proposed regulation. The same business, the same regulation. The internet platforms must fund no less than 30% of the total loans in their co-lending businesses. That means if Ant want to continue their business model, they must put their own money into the co-lending business. They cannot rely so much on their bank partners in using their funds and only providing information and do not bear the corresponding credit risk and do not control the risk enough, making the regulators satisfied. So there will be some changes. So how will the story go? The Ant presents itself like a tech company, and the new regulations try to shift Ant more into a bank. Maybe the result will be in the middle here. A fintech company will enjoy the technology advantages, but at the same time accept the financial regulations similar as banks. The recent news last week of Ant's restructure includes the following contents. First, it cannot think of itself as a truly tech firm. It needs to transform into a financial holding company. And it's required that Ant need to inject some capital. There are rumors, there are sayings that Ant may apply for some new license, including the consumer finance license and including the credit reporting license. And maybe Ant need to divest some products that are too new to regulate. There are some news that Ant need to cut off the improper connection between its payment platforms and its financial products. So how will the restructure end is still ongoing. We don't know which of the following 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things would happen. So we still need to wait and see. Keep an eye on how things going. Here's my summary. I used a Taiji tool in traditional Chinese culture because the public sector is changing, adopting fintech, and the private sector is also changing, embracing regulation. So they become more similar and near to each other. How will the central bank digital currency apply in the fintech landscape? And how will Ant restructure and embrace regulation? I think it's a question that we can keep in mind and see how it unfolds. This is my brief introduction of the slices. Any questions? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Yang Ji. This is a very interesting and very updated insights on Chinese the fintech development and the evolution. And I think these two issues of the digital currency adopted by the national authority, at the same time, commercial company who are adapting fintech, getting into banking and the financial services are very unique globally. I never heard any of these kind of movement or new trends from United States or Europe or Japan, even in Korea. Everybody is investigating, everybody is watching how Chinese government adopting digital currency, how the Chinese government negotiating, promoting or regulating Alibaba's Mawin on end-to-group issues. So this is a very too interesting issue. I have two experts from our graduate school. Professor No Eun-young will address the first issue of digital currency. Let me introduce Professor No.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'm glad to have this opportunity to attend this webinar as a discussion panel. Professor Ji presented two main contents today. First one is about CBDC and the other one is about Ant Group. I think both topics are very interesting and getting a lot of attention in Korea as well. So let me ask you two questions on CBDC. CBDC is in the area which central bank around the world are very highly interested in. The recent BIS survey found that 80% of the central banks are investigating CBDC. And Korean central banks also formed a TF or CBDC research last year. According to the BIS report, the general purpose for CBDC is to use it as a means of payment. So this is also why China's CBDC is called as DCEP, digital currency electronic payment. The picture on the right is a headline in Korean newspaper about Chinese CBDC. In Korea, in terms of the purpose of issuing CBDC of China, it is generally understood that Chinese government tried to keep both US dollar system and Alipay or WeChat Pay in check. So my first question is, what do you think the purpose of issuing CBDC by the Chinese government is?
Is it trying to beat dollars? Does the driving forces include dollars? I don't think so, because the central bank in China has emphasized many times that, and also its development of CBDC, its development of eCNY, the research on eCNY, mainly focus on the domestic usage in the first stage up to now. And the cross-border payments, the experiments, and the correlation, the cooperation are in very, very early stage. So that means maybe, I don't know what the future would unfold, but up to now, all the work done on CBDC is focusing on domestic usage and not the internationalization of RMB. So from the Chinese government's stand of view, I don't think there is a fight or a cold war between China and the US in digital currency. And also, I have discussed this question with my American friends about how the US think about it. And we all know that the United States are not progressing very quick on the development of digital currency, the fiat digital currency, because the cash usage of US dollars is not really declining. And the United States thinks that they have a reliable enough payment system. So they do not feel the pushing strings. They do not feel the pressure to develop some digital currencies. So it seems that in this so-called Cold War, the Chinese government is not going across border and the United States government is not even drawing this wall. So I don't think the driving forces would include this part.
Thank you for your comment. And second question is about CBDC and blockchain. The discussion about CBDC is closely related to the emergence of the Bitcoin based on blockchain. Professor Ji already said China's CBDC doesn't require blockchain system. Last year, Chinese government opened blockchain-based service network, which is called BSN in short. But as we all know, blockchain is a decentralized technology, and some experts said that DCP may use BSN. So I would like to ask that what is the relationship between DCP and BSN? And I wonder what is the main purpose of establishing BSN by the Chinese government, who is generally known as not accepting decentralization. Thank you.
The building of BSN also includes one top China telecom company. So as I said in the previous slides, the PBOC have said it will allow the second-tiered operators to choose their own technology. Maybe some of the second-tiered operators will choose blockchain and decentralized system, but on top of this payment infrastructure, PBOC will not choose decentralized system. So what's the main purpose of establishing BSN, establishing the decentralized blockchain network in all parts of China? I don't think it's for the issuance of ECNY, the issuance of DCEP. It helps to build trust among the government and the public, and it aims to provide some blockchain infrastructure for different enterprises. I will use two examples. Between the government and the public, in the old days, when they try to deal with some individual issues, applying something from the government bureau or trying to get some documents from the government, the process is very long and difficult. However, there is a proposal from the government, from the top government, since from 3 years ago, about digital government. It's called digital government. That means you can do all the things online and you can trust the digital process. However, how the trust is built, especially for the local government, not the central government, I think the blockchain, the decentralized technology here will help. It will help the public to better trust the local government when they need to apply for something or to get some documentation from the local government. So this could be built for the local governments. Another example is a supply chain finance. Supply chain finance means that you build a chain and show that how some company is offering materials for another very large company. And then from their business, we can tell that the small company who is providing materials for the very large company, we can trust its credit history. We know that it can pay off the loan. And with all this kind of business relationship, putting on blockchain, putting on the decentralized system, then the local banks, the local other financial institutions will trust the smaller enterprises from the chain. So this kind of BSN would be some infrastructure, financial infrastructure, or financial trust machine built by the central government and offering to SME, offering to smaller banks, offering for the whole private or public financial system. I think it's like the Ethereum built by Chinese government.
Thank you, your comment.
Okay, thank you for your comment. For next discussion, the Professor Piano Long
Okay, so many thanks for Professor Jiang's spectacular lecture on China's fintech practices and blockchain-based CBDC. So actually, Professor Ji is my co-author that I respect a lot, and I really treasure every time I can talk with her because I can acquire some new insights and new thoughts about research and finance practices in China. So you know what? For young assistant professor in China, if he or she can publish one paper on economic research journal, which is the best Chinese journal in economics, he or she can be promoted to full professor directly. The amazing thing is that before Professor Ji graduated from Peking University several years ago, she had already published 4 articles on economic research journal. So it's an amazing achievement. So I believe you guys must learn a lot from China's fintech practices today from Professor Jiang's lecture. So here I have 2 questions. The first question is, after the release of the interim regulation on the online microlending business, I just thought the aunt will incorporate its 2 microlending companies, 蚂蚁商城 and 蚂蚁小微, into one company to meet the new regulation that only one microlending company can be launched to do the nationwide microlending business in China. However, according to the recent release of the aunt last week, they are planning to launch a new commercial finance company to do the Huabei and the Jiebei business. So I'm wondering what's the difference between microlending company and the consumer finance company. My second question is that according to the reply of the vice governor of Chinese Central Bank, Mr. Pan Gongsheng, in the Q&A session on the aunt group last week, the government authority requires the aunt to disconnect the Huabei and the Jiebei business from the Alipay, so which is really a shock to me. So does the aunt have to launch a new app to do the Huabei and the Jiebei or other financial products in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. For the first question, what's the difference between microlending and consumer finance company? When I learned the news, the really release, I check it out, and I find that the leverage requirement for consumer finance company, the regulators allow higher leverage for consumer finance company. So maybe start up a new consumer finance company means that the lending skill will not be required to cut down so much of ant group. Maybe that's the reason why they, after discussion with central banks, they proposed to have a new consumer finance company. And for the second question, I'm also very shocked when I learned that there need to be a disconnection between Alipay and Huabei and Jiebei. But I don't think there will be a separate app. It's too much trouble, and it may mean that Huabei and Jiebei will no longer have that much consumers. Because so many people in China already have Huabei and Jiebei. So having a separate app and make them no longer use Huabei and Jiebei is not, I don't think it's realistic. So my guess here, only a guess, is that in the old days, Alipay will make Huabei the default choice of payment. Maybe this kind of defaulting will disappear, and the users can put their own preferences in which one is their first choice to pay and which one is their second choice to be the payment method. Maybe they will use their debit card to be the first choice of their payment method and not Huabei. And also there are many discount programs related to Huabei to promote the usage of Huabei in Taobao and Tianmao, the e-commerce platforms. I think in the future, this kind of discounting programs, the promotion programs of Huabei will be cut down a little. That's my thinking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for question and comments raised by Professor No and Professor Piano Nong. I'd like to open it up, our chatting room. Mr. Kim Jin-ho has a question. Professor Yang Ji, can you see?
Yeah, I can see it. Is this question, the Bitcoin and Dogecoin goes up so fast nowadays? This one, right?
You're
Yeah,
right.
and in the case of Dogecoin, it has already increased so much. As Bitcoin goes up, you said it's fast, stable, and no fee. But my personal opinion is that it often falls as fast as it went up, like what happened to Bitcoin. So how should we deal with a huge decline? Oh, I want to clarify a little here. I didn't say the Dogecoin is fast and stable and cheap. It's who said that? It's a partition. The partition and the supporters said that. I don't support this view. I think the cryptocurrencies, they go up and down so much. And I don't think it's stable. I think the value would change a lot. However, in the cryptocurrency market, there are mainly two categories of them. The first one, I usually call it the traditional cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin and Dogecoin. And there's another kind, starting very early, but come to the view of our ordinary people in the last 2 years. It's called stable coins, including the DAI coin and the USTD coin. These kind of stable coins, they will patch to a fiat currency or patch its value to gold, and usually with some collaterals, including the off-chain collateral like the US dollar deposit, or on-chain collateral like the Ethereum, other cryptocurrency like using as the collateral for stable coins. So in the crypto digital currency market or the crypto asset market, I think it will diverge. The traditional type of the Bitcoin and Dogecoin, they will fluctuate a lot in the future and fluctuate more, decline and then went up and then goes up. But there will be one part of this cryptocurrency market, the stablecoin market. It will become a cryptocurrency with stable values. So I think the divergence will end up like the traditional cryptocurrencies would be used as crypto assets for investment and not for transactions, and its values would go up and down in the future. And for the stable coins of the cryptocurrency market, it will be used for transactions and not investments, and its value would stay stable. That's, I think, how we should deal with a huge decline. When it decline, you will transact your traditional crypto asset, the Bitcoin, into the stable crypto asset, into DAI or into USTD. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Now, next question by Professor Song,
Thank you.
pre-authorized operator.
Okay. Not only commercial banks, but also telecom operators and Alipay, WeChat Pay. Does this imply any potential impact on financial systems in China? Oh, I think so. I think so. Because now the mobile payment market is dominated by Alipay and WeChat Pay. And because the payment market is a two-sided market, if CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency of China, the DCAP, or we call it ECNY, if the central bank force all sellers, all stores to accept it, that means all the consumers will start to use it. And when all the consumers start to use it, maybe they do not frequently use Alipay app anymore, and we change to the digital wallets of ECNY. That means not only the consumer base of Alipay would decrease, it also means the information Alipay collected from our payments, from our purchase behaviors, and then based on the payments to develop all kinds of financial products. This business would also decline a lot. So I think the ECNY will become a very big shock to Alipay and WeChat Pay, depending on how much the central bank would promote ECNY, would force all stores, all on-site stores or online stores to accept it.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's going to be a lot of innovation by Chinese government, accordingly Chinese company on this fintech industry. we will see unknown land of innovation of the fintech for the coming this year. So a lot of scholars and the students who are working in this industry hopefully get more information and the analysis and your guidance on what's going to happen for the future in terms of digital currency and the digital fintech business. Thank you very much to present a very insightful information and your analysis to us. And please, let's give a big hands to her. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this afternoon. Bye-bye.